Well, Skinny, it's Groundhog Day. Again, an 0-2 start. They fall to the Ravens, 0-2 in the division as well. Obviously, we're going to hear all the company lines coming from Zach Taylor and the players of nobody's panicking. We're going to turn this thing around. They're going to keep pointing to last year. But this year is this year, and this year things have not looked good to start.
No, and obviously it's compounded now by the mystery about Joe Burrow's calf and where that injury is going to go. I mean, he sounded really dejected after the game, tweaked it late in the game, don't really know specifically how, but he even said, I'm going to sleep on it for a couple of nights to see how it gets better maybe in the next few days. That's not exactly a positive sign or a positive trend. But there was a positive I think you can take out of this game, and there's not much. I mean, 0-2 stinks, and it's one thing to say we did it before, but it's not always easy to dig out of that kind of a hole. After first quarter, 14 yards, no first downs, struggling for a bit of the second quarter. The last drive of the second quarter for them, right before halftime, they kicked the field goal. They actually went 63 yards, picked up 4 first downs, and from that point forward, the offense really got on a roll. Over 200 yards in the second half, 15 first downs in the second half. One negative play was the Joe Burrow interception that was really a big one because it turned maybe 3 points in a tie or 7 points in a lead into a Ravens 10-point lead. And at that point, the Bengals playing catch-up could not catch up. But, maybe last year it took 2 games to kind of get the offense going. This year, maybe you can argue it took, 5.5 quarters. Problem is, though, the 5.5 quarters have dug you an 0-2 hole.
I really thought that once they started going no huddle and playing with a little more tempo, it's almost like Burrow stopped thinking too much. He just started winging it. The windows were tight. You saw him fitting those in. It looked like they got back to what they did. And give credit to the Ravens. They gave pressure when they had to. And the defensive backs, I thought, did a good job keeping everything in front of them. Not a lot of downfield hits. But do you think this is the turning point for the offense? I mean, obviously Burrow's health is in question, but maybe they found something.
Yeah, they haven't hit big plays yet. You're right about that part of it. And some of that's because of defensive structure. Some of that's, maybe Joe can't drive into throws. Although I thought some of the tight window throws that you mentioned were really good. I mean, he threw one to T. Higgins on a third down play in between, it looked like 5 defenders. He was blanketed by him. He zipped it right in the window. So that part of his games looked really sharp. Again, big plays, you need to have those in this league. It's hard to drive the field and score in the NFL multiple times in a game. So they're going to have to hit on some of those. But I do think, because we've seen this offense have success before, right? It didn't look like the offense that had success for those first 5.5 quarters, but the last 2.5 quarters of this game, that's where you go, that's the Bengals offense I expected this year, and you would hope that carryover continues, and I think it will.
And there were a couple plays, too, when you talk about those big explosive plays. Irv Smith's come to mind where they sold out, went on an all-out blitz, and Smith caught it and just got tripped up by Kyle.
It was going to be a touchdown.
Yeah, it was nobody in behind him. And there were a couple of those type plays that you can see the explosive coming, but the dice really hasn't rolled their way yet. Defensively, it's hard to diagram what this game is because Lamar Jackson looked like his MVP kind of self. He was dicing up running. He was making some incredible throws. But that secondary, I thought, showed a little bit of their age and their inexperience.
Yeah, I think the whole defense as a whole, especially on third down, really struggled. And you're right, you can chalk up some of that to Lamar. He kept plays alive with his feet. He extended plays with his feet. He picked up a couple of big first downs with his feet. They didn't do a lot of design runs, and that seems like that's what this offense for them is going to be. Not a lot of design runs for Lamar, but that doesn't mean he still isn't good at scrambling, and he still showed that in this game. I thought he showed some of that. Chidobe Awuzie, I thought the coverage was okay on the Nelson Aguilar throw. It was a brilliant throw. He dropped it right in the bucket to him in that regard. They hit that big play to Zay Flowers, which was disappointing because that did flip the field, and that did lead to that 20-10 lead. So, yeah, across the board defensively, it hasn't been a great performance the first 2 weeks. I'm really high on this defense, and I hope I'm not wrong. I don't think I'm wrong because I've seen this group do some really good things. They give up 9 of 14 on third down conversions, and a couple of them on 3rd and 2s where they just handed the ball to Gus Edwards and said, here we come, stop us, and they couldn't do it. And that's the part that's a little disconcerting because that defensive line, there's a lot of money invested in that group. All across the board, and plus you invested a draft pick in that spot, a high draft pick, a first-round pick in Miles Murphy, and you shouldn't get pushed off the ball. Listen, I know it's NFL guys on the other side. I know all those things, but listen, you invested in that defensive line for a reason, and it's to come up with 3rd and 2 stops, and they just didn't do it. Some of it, chalk it up to Lamar and his brilliance, but some of it is you didn't get the job done.
And it doesn't give you a sense of confidence either, the fact that the Ravens were so dinged up coming into this game. The injury list of significant guys, and they still were able to overcome them.
Missing left tackle Ronnie Stanley, missing their starting center Tyler Linderbaum. They brought Sam Mustipher up from the practice squad. Now, they did the same thing last week. They elevated him. He got some snaps when Linderbaum got hurt. But literally, you had a practice squad center playing and then a backup left tackle playing.
And without your starting running back, J.K. Dobbins.
Correct. That's a team that you should dominate up front. Not just, and they got very little pass rush. And when they did, they were kind of out of rush lanes, and that's when Lamar made them pay. And so if you're not going to do it against a team that's, down their left tackle, the biggest key position on the offensive line, and the center, another key position on the offensive line, and you couldn't dominate that, that's a problem.
Your level of concern over this 0-2 start. I know Zach Taylor says he's not panicking. The guys in the locker room say they're not. Where are you at?
Yeah, I get it. And, you know, when you've gone through this before and you've overcome it like they did, you can say those things. I get it. I'm concerned because of the Burrow calf injury. I mean, that's the part for me. Now, maybe it's going to be a good thing that the Monday night game gives you one extra day, and that may not sound like a lot, but maybe that is a lot. I'm a little concerned about the defense after back-to-back games of really not being able to handle things on the ground and handle situations. This has always been a good situational defense, red zone, third downs, all those things. They were good on third downs last week. 4 for 14 is all Cleveland was on third down the week before. They were not good in that today. So, I think if it's a healthy Joe Burrow, I'm less concerned because we saw the offense start to click, and that should carry over. I would expect that to carry over. You're healthy on offense other than Joe Burrow, so you're not trying to replace your left tackle or your center like Baltimore was, all of those things. My level of concern is you're playing a team in the Rams that's pretty good, and they have a winning pedigree, and it's on a Monday night, all those things. Listen, they found a way to get out of this hole last year, but it feels different. I don't know why it feels different. Maybe it's because they lost to Pittsburgh because the long snapper got hurt. And then in game 2, the storyline was still trying to find some cohesiveness on an offensive line that had a bunch of new pieces and trying to find out what to do best in the running game. They went to some different things after that. I don't know where you go from here. I mean, you talk about the most must-win of must-wins. I don't say that very often, but this one coming up with the Rams, it's an absolute must-win. You dig yourself an 0-3 hole, and then you really start to question some things, and then you have to wonder with Burrow's injury, where do you go from there with him?